I showed up thinking we were celebrating their retirement. I left knowing they never saw me as family, just a wallet. My name is Reese, and for 9 years, I've been paying my parents' mortgage, not helping with it, paying it, all $2,300 every month, while my younger sister Sydney lives there rent-free, posting Instagram stories from their pool and planning her next vacation to Bali. You're so good with money, Mom always says, her voice dripping with that special kind of dismissal that makes a compliment feel like an insult. Sydney's just different, more free-spirited. Free-spirited. That's what they call it when your 29-year-old daughter hasn't held a job longer than 6 months and treats their house like her personal resort. It started after Dad's heart attack. I still remember that night in the hospital, Mom clutching her designer purse, mascara running down her face. "We might lose the house," she'd whispered. "The medical bills and the mortgage." I'd just gotten my promotion at the financial advisory firm. I was looking at downtown apartments, dreaming of city views and morning coffee on my own balcony. Instead, I wrote the first check to their mortgage company. Just until Dad's back on his feet, Mom had promised. That was 9 years ago. "Reese, Earth to Reese?" Sydney's voice cuts through my thoughts. She's sprawled across Mom's expensive couch, scrolling through her phone. "Mom wants to know if you're coming to dinner Friday. They have news." "What kind of news? How should I know?" She rolls her eyes without looking up. "But Mom says it's important, like family meeting important." I check my calendar, already knowing I'll say yes. I always say yes. "What time?" 7. "And try to look nice for once." Gavin's coming. Ah, yes, Gavin, Sydney's latest boyfriend, who coincidentally moved in 3 months ago, another freeloader in my parents' increasingly crowded nest. "I'll be there," I say, gathering my laptop. I'd come over to help Dad with his retirement account paperwork, but he'd conveniently forgotten about a golf game. Typical. "Don't you want to stay for dinner?" Mom appears in the doorway, perfect makeup, perfect hair. "I'm making your father's favorite." "Can't." "I have plans." "I don't, but I've learned to lie about these things. Otherwise, they'll guilt me into staying, and I'll have to watch Sydney and Gavin make out on the couch while Mom pretends not to notice. "Always so busy," Mom sighs. "Sydney, honey, what do you want for dinner?" I'm halfway to my car when my phone buzzes. It's Landon. "Still on for tonight?" I pause, key in the ignition. Landon's been patient, more patient than I deserve. He doesn't understand why I keep putting my life on hold for people who barely acknowledge my existence. Sometimes I don't either. "Rain check?" I text back. "Family dinner Friday. They have news." His response is quick. "You okay?" I stare at those 2 words longer than I should. Am I okay? I've spent nearly a decade bankrolling my parents' lifestyle while my sister treats me like an ATM with legs. I've delayed buying my own home, postponed my own dreams, all to keep their perfect suburban facade intact. "I'm fine," I lie again. But something feels different this time. Maybe it's the way Mom said news. Maybe it's Sydney's smug little smile. Or maybe I'm finally reaching my breaking point. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Mom. "Wear that blue dress on Friday, the one that doesn't make you look so professional. And please do something with your hair." "Love you." I start the car, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. 9 years of payments, 9 years of love you, tagged onto criticisms like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Friday's dinner is going to be different. I don't know how yet, but something's shifting inside me. That good daughter they've taken for granted. She's getting tired of paying the price for everyone else's happiness. And I have a feeling their big news is going to be the last straw. I wore the blue dress. Not because Mom asked, but because sometimes it's easier to let them think they're in control. I even did something with my hair, though I'm sure it wasn't enough to meet their standards. The moment I walked into their dining room, I knew something was wrong. Sydney was practically vibrating with excitement, Gavin's arm draped around her shoulders like he belonged there. Mom had broken out the good china, the set she usually saves for Christmas. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Wine? Mom held up a bottle of my favorite red, another bad sign. They only bought expensive wine when they wanted something. Sure. I sat down, noticing the stack of papers half hidden under a napkin near Dad's plate. So what's the big news? Let's eat first, Mom chirped, too bright, too cheerful. I made your favorite lasagna. It wasn't my favorite, it was Sydney's. I'd stopped correcting them years ago. Dinner was a performance. Sydney dominated the conversation, talking about her upcoming business venture. Another pyramid scheme, probably, while Gavin nodded supportively. Mom kept refilling my wine glass. Dad pushed his food around his plate. Finally, after dessert, Mom cleared her throat. Reese, honey, we've been thinking about the future. Oh? I took a careful sip of wine. Your father and I aren't getting any younger, she continued, and we want to make sure everything's taken care of. Dad suddenly found his water glass fascinating. We've decided to transfer the house to Sydney. The words hung in the air like smoke. I set my wine glass down slowly, carefully, as if it might explode. As an early inheritance, Mom added quickly. You know how responsible Sydney's becoming, and with Gavin here to help maintain the property. Isn't it amazing? Sydney squealed. Gavin and I already have plans for the kitchen. That awful tile has got to go. I looked at Dad. He was studying the tablecloth like it held the secrets of the universe. Of course, Mom continued, her voice honey-sweet. We're hoping you won't mind continuing the current arrangement, just until everything's settled. The current arrangement, I repeated. You mean the mortgage payments? Well, yes. Sydney and Gavin will need time to establish themselves properly. Gavin finally spoke up. We really appreciate everything you do for the family, Reese. You're like the responsible one, you know? My hands were steady as I reached for the papers under Dad's napkin. He didn't stop me. These the transfer documents? I asked, flipping through them. Mind if I have my lawyer look them over, just to make sure everything's proper? Lawyer? Sydney's face scrunched up. Why do you need a lawyer? It's just family stuff. Exactly because it's family stuff. I smiled, and for once I didn't try to make it look genuine. We wouldn't want any complications. Don't be difficult, Reese, Mom sighed. This is a happy occasion. Oh, I'm sure it is. I stood up, documents in hand. I'll have Trisha review these and get back to you. Who's Trisha? Gavin asked. My lawyer. I grabbed my purse. Thanks for dinner. Reese, Dad finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. We thought you'd understand. I paused at the door, turning back to look at them. My perfect family tableau, Mom's frozen smile, Sydney's entitled pout, Gavin's calculating gaze, Dad's guilty eyes. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. I'll be in touch. In my car, I finally let my hands shake. 9 years of payments, 9 years of sacrifices, and their grand plan was to hand it all to Sydney while expecting me to keep footing the bill? My phone buzzed. A text from Sydney. Don't be such a drama queen. Mom's crying. I started the engine, my mind already racing ahead. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought I'd smile and nod and keep paying, like the good daughter they'd taken for granted. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Trisha, it's Reese. Remember that conversation we had about property liens? I think it's time. 9 years of mortgage payments, Trisha said, spreading the documents across her desk. Every single one traceable back to your account. No gift letters, no written agreements, just straight payments to the bank. She looked up at me, her eyes sharp. They really didn't think this through, did they? I was sitting in her office, surrounded by 9 years of financial records I'd meticulously kept. Call it professional habit or subconscious self-preservation, but I'd saved everything. Look at this, I said, pulling up old text messages on my phone. From Sydney, 3 years ago. Must be nice being so boring you can afford to play house hero. Some of us actually want to live life. Trisha took my phone, scrolling through the messages. And this one. Mum says you're just trying to control everyone with money, but whatever helps you sleep at night, sis. She handed the phone back. Charming. My laptop pinged with a new Instagram notification. Sydney had posted a photo of herself in front of our parents' house. Caption, future home renovation project. Can't wait to make this place mine. Hasta blessed. She's already acting like she owns it, I said, turning the laptop around to show Trisha. Technically, she doesn't own anything yet. Trisha pulled out a fresh legal pad. And she won't, not without dealing with us first. My phone buzzed again. Landon. Haven't heard from you since Friday. You okay? I ignored it. Here's something interesting, Trisha said, holding up a document. This deed clause dated 2 years ago. Your father added language about future ownership transfer to Sydney Hayes. They've been planning this for a while. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. 2 years. They'd been plotting this for 2 years while taking my money. What are my options? Trisha leaned back in her chair. Well, we could sue for reimbursement, but that's messy, expensive, and they could drag it out. Or, she smiled, the kind of smile that made me glad she was on my side. We could file a lien on the property. What exactly would that do? It means they can't transfer or sell the house until they settle their debt to you, all 9 years of it. She did some quick calculations on her pad. Roughly $248,400 plus interest. My phone buzzed again. Mom, this time. Sydney's picking out paint colours. When can we expect those papers back? How long would it take, I asked Trisha, to file the lien? I can have it done by tomorrow. They won't know it's there until they try to transfer the property. She paused, studying my face. Are you sure about this? It's going to get ugly. I thought about Dad's guilty silence, Mom's manipulative sweetness, Sydney's entitled smirk. I thought about 9 years of delayed dreams and dismissed sacrifices. Do it. Trisha nodded and started typing on her computer. One more thing, she said, not looking up. I found some irregularities in their tax returns. They never reported your payments as gifts or income. If they tried to fight this legally, they'd be exposing their own tax fraud, I finished. All those years of protecting them, and they'd left themselves vulnerable anyway. My phone buzzed one more time. Landon, coming over tonight? We need to talk. I finally replied, can't. Working on something important. Reese, Trisha said softly, this is going to change everything. Your relationship with your family might never recover. I looked at Sydney's Instagram post again, at her perfectly filtered smile in front of the house I'd been paying for. 9 years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the boring one. 9 years of watching Sydney live her best life on my dime. What relationship? I asked. They never saw me as family. Just an ATM with a pulse. Trisha nodded and turned back to her computer. I'll file first thing tomorrow. Then we wait. As I left her office, another text came through, this time from Dad. Your mother says you're being difficult about the papers. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I smiled, thinking about the lien that would soon be quietly filed. They wanted to play games with property transfers? Fine. I'd been playing the long game for 9 years. They just didn't know it yet. Landon was waiting on my doorstep when I got home, takeout bags in hand. I'd been avoiding him for days, but I should have known he wouldn't let me ghost him forever. "You look terrible," he said, following me inside. "Thanks. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear." He set the food on my kitchen counter. "Want to tell me what's going on? Or should I just follow Sydney's Instagram updates about her exciting new home ownership journey?" I pulled up Trisha's email on my phone and handed it to him. His eyes widened as he read. "A lien?" He looked up. "Reese, this is intense. Intense is expecting me to keep paying the mortgage on a house they're giving to my sister. I'm not saying they're right." He started unpacking the food, my favorite Thai place. "But this is the kind of thing that can't be undone. Are you sure you want to go nuclear?" My phone pinged. Sydney had posted another update. "Time to claim what's rightfully mine, Jar's new beginnings, Jar blessed, Jar homeowner." I showed Landon the post. "They went nuclear first. I'm just responding in kind." "Your dad's health..." "Don't!" I slammed my chopsticks down. "Don't you dare use his health to guilt me. They sure didn't think about his health when they were planning this for 2 years behind my back." Landon raised his hands in surrender. Okay. Just, what's the end game here?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Mom's number. "Reese, we've set up a meeting with our lawyer for Thursday to finalize everything." Her voice was syrupy sweet. "You'll bring those papers back, right?" I caught Landon's eye as I responded. "Of course, Mom. I'll be there. Mind if I bring Trisha? Since we're making everything official." A pause. "Your lawyer friend?" "Oh, well, I suppose if you think it's necessary." "I do. See you Thursday." After I hung up, Landon shook his head. "They have no idea what's coming, do they?" "Nope." I picked up my chopsticks again. "And that's exactly how I want it." My phone buzzed with a text from Trisha. "Lien is filed. They won't know until they try to transfer the property. Ready for Thursday?" "You don't have to do this," Landon said quietly. "You could just walk away, start fresh." I showed him my banking app, scrolling through 9 years of mortgage payments. $248,400. That's what walking away would cost me, not counting the interest. "Since when did you start measuring love in dollars?" "Since they did." I stood up, suddenly not hungry. "They taught me that lesson pretty well." Landon followed me to the living room. "What about us?" I turned to face him. "What about us?" "This version of you, the one plotting revenge, going for the jugular. I don't know if there's room for anything else in your life right now." He was right. I'd been pushing him away, canceling dates, ignoring calls. Everything had narrowed down to this single point of focus, making them pay. "I need to do this," I said finally. "If you can't handle that, I can handle it." He stepped closer. "I just don't want to watch you burn everything down and realize too late that you're standing in the ashes alone." My phone pinged again. A group text from Mom. "Thursday, 2 p.m. at Riverside Law Offices. Business casual attire. Let's make this a happy occasion." Sydney replied immediately. "Can't wait. Gavin's coming too." I looked at Landon. "They want a happy occasion? Fine. I'll give them one they'll never forget." He sighed, gathering his keys. "Just be careful, okay? Revenge might feel good in the moment, but this isn't about feeling good." I cut him off. "This is about justice." After he left, I sat in my quiet apartment, staring at the group text. Mom had added a string of heart emojis. Sydney was sending house renovation Pinterest links. Dad, as usual, was silent. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. Let them bring their lawyer. Let them bring their papers and their plans and their smug certainty. I had 9 years of receipts, and one perfectly filed lien that said otherwise. The conference room at Riverside Law Offices felt like a stage, and we were all playing our parts. Mum sat perfectly poised, Sydney practically bounced in her chair, and Gavin lounged like he owned the place. Dad, as always, looked like he wished he were anywhere else. Their lawyer, Mr. Peterson, spread documents across the mahogany table. Now that everyone's here, we can begin the property transfer. Tricia sat beside me, calm and collected, her briefcase unopened on the table. We'd agreed to let them make the first move. Before we start, Mom chirped, I just want to say how wonderful it is that we're all here together, making this official. Sydney grabbed Gavin's hand. I can't wait to start renovations. That kitchen is so dated. The kitchen I paid for, I said quietly. The room went still. Excuse me? Mr. Peterson looked up from his papers. Nothing. I smiled. Please continue. He nodded and pushed a document toward me. We just need your signature here, acknowledging the transfer of property to Sydney. Of course. I reached for the paper, then paused. But shouldn't we address the lien first? The word landed like a bomb. Mum's perfect smile froze. Sydney's bouncing stopped. What lien? Mr. Peterson frowned. Tricia finally opened her briefcase. The one my client filed last week. She slid a folder across the table. Along with documentation of 9 years of mortgage payments totaling $248,400 plus applicable interest. Sydney's face went from confused to furious in record time. What are you doing? Protecting my investment. I kept my voice level. You didn't think I'd just hand over $250,000, did you? But that was a gift, Mom sputtered. To help the family. Tricia pulled out another document. Interesting, because there's no gift letter on file. No written agreement of any kind. Just direct payments from my client's account to the mortgage company. Mr. Peterson was rapidly flipping through the papers, his face growing darker. This changes everything. The property can't be transferred with an active lien. This is ridiculous, Sydney shrieked. Mom, do something. But Mom was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. How could you do this to your sister? How could you do this to me? I countered. 2 years, Mom. You planned this for 2 years while taking my money. Dad finally spoke up, his voice barely audible. You'd do this to your family? The question hit exactly where it was meant to, right in the heart. But I was ready for it. I thought I was family, I said softly. Turns out I was just the bank. We can fight this, Gavin announced, puffing up his chest. Get our own lawyer. I wouldn't recommend that, Tricia interrupted smoothly. Any legal scrutiny might raise questions about unreported income and tax implications. The IRS tends to take interest in undisclosed financial arrangements of this size. The color drained from Mom's face. She knew exactly what that meant. This is how you want to play it? Sydney was practically spitting. Fine. I'll tell everyone what you did, how you betrayed your own family. Go ahead. I stood up, gathering my things. Tell them how I paid the mortgage for 9 years. Tell them how you lived rent-free while I put my life on hold. Tell them how Mom and Dad planned to give you my investment without even asking me. Tell them everything. The room fell silent except for Sydney's heavy breathing. The lien stays until I'm repaid, I said, heading for the door. Every single penny. Wait, Dad called out. Please. We can work something out. I turned back one last time, taking in the tableau. Mom's crumbling facade, Sydney's rage, Gavin's calculations, Dad's desperation, and Mr. Peterson's obvious discomfort. You had 9 years to work something out. You chose this instead. Outside, in the parking lot, Tricia caught up with me. You okay? I took a deep breath of fresh air. No, but I will be. My phone was already buzzing with messages. Mom begging, Sydney threatening, Dad guilt-tripping. I turned it off. They wanted to play games with house titles and inheritance? Fine. But they were about to learn that karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes she files a lien. The aftermath was nuclear. Sydney took to social media like a wounded animal, posting tearful stories about toxic family members and betrayal. Mom called every relative in her contact list, spinning a tale of her ungrateful eldest daughter. Dad just sent guilt-laden text messages at 3 a.m. I was ready for all of it. What I wasn't ready for was Gavin showing up at my office. You need to remove the lien, he said, blocking my path to my car after work. Sydney's devastated. Fascinating. Move. He stepped closer, trying to use his height to intimidate me. Listen, we can make this ugly if you want. I know people who what? I pulled out my phone, already recording. Please finish that threat. My lawyer would love to hear it. He backed off slightly, changing tactics. Look, we can work something out. Maybe a payment plan? You mean like the payment plan I've been on for 9 years? That was different. His face reddened. That was family. Exactly. And family shouldn't steal from family. I moved past him to my car. Tell Sydney she can have the house when I get my money back, every cent. My phone buzzed with a notification. Sydney had posted again. Some people are so bitter about others' success that they'll destroy their own family out of jealousy. Karma will handle it. I laughed out loud. Karma was already handling it, just not the way she expected. When I got home, Landon was waiting. Again. Your mom called me, he said as I unlocked my door. Of course she did. I threw my keys on the counter. Let me guess. I'm breaking poor Sydney's heart? Destroying the family? Being unreasonable? Actually, she offered to set me up with Sydney if I broke up with you. I stopped short. She what? Said Sydney would be much better suited for me, that you're clearly unstable and vindictive. He smiled grimly. I told her I prefer my women with spines of steel. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Trisha. Your sister's boyfriend tried to file a harassment claim against you, she said without preamble. Unfortunately for him, the security cameras in your office parking lot caught his little intimidation attempt. Of course they did. I put the phone on speaker. What else? Your mother's been calling my office, threatening to report me to the Bar Association for destroying her family. I've kept the voicemails. Also, you might want to check your credit report. Someone tried to access it today. Landon's eyes widened. They would. I was already pulling up my credit monitoring app. They're desperate. One more thing, Trisha added. Your father's been asking about reverse mortgages. I think they're looking for ways to pay you off without selling. Good luck with that, I muttered. Their credit's shot from that bankruptcy 5 years ago, the one I helped them hide from everyone. My phone pinged with another notification. This time, it was a family email from Mom. Since Reese has chosen to attack our family, we're having an emergency meeting tonight to discuss our options. Reese, if you had any decency left, you'd attend and explain yourself to everyone. 7 p.m., don't be late. You're not going, Landon said immediately. Actually, I am. I grabbed my keys. But first, I'm stopping by the bank. Reese? They want me to explain myself? I pulled out a thick folder from my desk. Every email, every text, every bank statement from the past 9 years. I'll explain exactly how family treats family. Trisha's voice came through the speaker. Want me there? No, but stay by your phone. Something tells me they're going to do something stupid. After I hung up, Landon caught my arm. You don't have to keep fighting this battle. Yes, I do. I showed him Sydney's latest post, A photo of her crying, caption reading, "When your own sister tries to steal your inheritance, they're going to paint you as the villain no matter what," he said softly. "Then I might as well earn the title." I headed for the door. They wanted a family meeting? Fine. Let's have a family meeting. Behind me, my phone lit up with another text from Dad. "Please don't do this to us." "We're your family." 9 years of receipts said otherwise, and I was done paying for their version of family love. The family meeting was more like an ambush. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even my grandmother had been summoned to witness my public shaming. They sat in my parents' living room, a jury ready to convict. Sydney had positioned herself in the center of the couch, eyes artfully red from crying. Mom stood by the fireplace, playing the role of grieving matriarch perfectly. Dad was nowhere to be seen. "She's here," Sydney stage whispered as I walked in. "I can't believe she actually came." I set my folder on the coffee table. "You called a meeting. I came." Aunt Linda spoke first. "Reese, honey, what's gotten into you? Your mother says you're trying to steal Sydney's inheritance." Interesting perspective. I pulled out the first bank statement. "Would you like to see what actually happened?" "We know what happened," Mom cut in quickly. "You helped with the mortgage out of the goodness of your heart, and now you're using it as a weapon." "The goodness of my heart?" I laughed. "Is that what we're calling financial manipulation now?" "You're just jealous," Sydney sniffled. "You always have been. Just because Mom and Dad trust me with the house." "Trust you?" I started laying out documents on the table. "Let's talk about trust." That's when Dad appeared in the doorway, clutching his chest. "Kenneth!" Mom rushed to his side. "You're hot. Reese, look what you're doing to your father." I froze. Everyone was staring at me, faces full of judgment. This was their trump card, Dad's health, my final guilt trip. But I was done playing that game. "Call an ambulance if he needs one," I said calmly. "But this conversation isn't over." "How can you be so cold?" Sydney demanded, but I noticed she hadn't moved to help Dad. "Cold?" I turned to the assembled family. "You want to know what's cold?" "Taking your daughter's money for 9 years while secretly planning to give the house to her sister. That's cold." Mom was still fussing over Dad, who had mysteriously recovered enough to sit down. "We never forced you to pay anything." "No, you just manipulated and guilt-tripped and emotionally blackmailed." I pulled out more documents. "Every time I talked about moving out, Dad had a health scare. Every time I mentioned stopping payments, Mom cried about losing the family home." "That's not true," Mom protested, but her voice wavered. "Then explain this." I held up a printed email from 2 years ago. You telling Sydney about plans to transfer her the house, while in the same week asking me to increase my monthly payments for Dad's new medication. The room went quiet. "Reese," Dad said softly, his first words of the night. "We never meant to hurt you." "Really?" I turned to him. "Then why did you hide the transfer plans for 2 years? Why did you keep taking my money? Why did you expect me to keep paying after giving the house to Sydney?" No one answered. "You want to know the real kicker?" I pulled out my phone, opening the banking app. "I could have bought my own house 3 times over. Instead, I paid for this one, and you all sat here watching me do it, saying nothing." Grandmother finally spoke up. "Kenneth, is this true?" "You took her money all these years?" Dad couldn't meet her eyes. "The lien stays," I announced, gathering my documents. "You can all think whatever you want of me. But the truth is in these papers, and it's in every payment I made while Sydney posted vacation photos from Bali." "You'll regret this," Sydney hissed. "When Dad's health gets worse, don't you dare," I cut her off. "Don't you dare use his health as a weapon again." I turned to leave, but stopped at the door. Oh, and Mom? Next time you try to access my credit report without permission, remember that's a federal crime, just like the tax fraud you've been committing by not reporting my payments. The silence was deafening. Outside, my phone lit up with a text from Landon. You okay? I looked back at the house, my $250,000 investment in a family that never valued me. No, I typed back, but I'm done pretending to be. Behind me, I could hear raised voices starting up again. Let them argue. Let them spin their stories. The truth was, in black and white, documented in 9 years of receipts they couldn't erase. And I was finally free of their manipulation. The for sale sign went up on a Tuesday. I drove past it on my way to view a downtown loft, the kind of place I dreamed about 9 years ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Trisha. Your parents' lawyer called. They're ready to settle. Sydney and Gavin had already moved out, their dream of a free house crumbling under the weight of reality. Last I heard, they were living in his mother's basement. Sydney's Instagram suddenly quiet about home renovations. I parked outside the loft building, but before I could get out, another text came through. Dad, can we talk? Just us? I almost ignored it, but something in me needed closure. Coffee shop on 5th. 30 minutes. He was already there when I arrived, looking older than I remembered. No Mom, no Sydney, no dramatic health episodes. Just my father, clutching a coffee cup with trembling hands. The house is listed, he said as I sat down. I saw. Your mother's not happy about downsizing to a condo. He attempted a weak smile. But the realtor says we should get enough to pay you back and have a decent down payment left over. I stayed silent. I kept all your checks, he said suddenly. Every single one, in a box in my office. Why? Because... He stared into his coffee. Because they were proof that at least one of my daughters truly cared about family, and I repaid that by betraying you. Why did you do it? The question that had haunted me for months. Why Sydney? Because she was the squeaky wheel, the one who demanded attention. You, he looked up, eyes wet. You were so strong, so capable. We took that for granted. Took you for granted. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. He pulled out an envelope. This is a cashier's check for the first installment. The rest will come from the house sale. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Sydney's not speaking to us, he continued. Says we chose you over her by selling. Your mother's barely speaking to me. The family's divided over the whole thing. That's not my problem. No, it's not. He smiled sadly. You know what Grandma said after you left that night? She said we deserved to lose the house, that we'd raised one daughter to take advantage and the other to be taken advantage of. My phone buzzed. The realtor was waiting upstairs at the loft. I have to go. I stood up. I'm looking at a place. The loft on 12th Street? When I looked surprised, he added, I remember you talking about it 9 years ago, before everything. Yeah, well, better late than never. As I turned to leave, he called out, Reese, I'm sorry, not for selling the house or for paying you back. I'm sorry we made you think your value was in your wallet, not your heart. I paused. Take care of yourself, Dad. And next time Sydney needs help, try teaching her to stand on her own feet instead of standing on mine. The loft was everything I'd dreamed of. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, city views that made my heart skip. As the realtor talked about hardwood floors and stainless appliances, my phone lit up with notifications. Sydney had finally broken her social media silence. Sometimes losing everything makes you realize what really matters. New beginnings, yearly starting over. Mom had sent an email. The condo complex has a pool. I suppose that's something. I hope you're happy with what you've done. but it was Trisha's message that made me smile. Lien release is ready once the house sells. Freedom has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? I turned to the realtor. I'll take it. Standing at those huge windows, I watched the city buzz below. 9 years of payments had bought me something after all. Not a house, but a backbone. Not an inheritance, but independence. They taught me that love was measured in mortgage payments and manipulations. I taught them that karma doesn't always knock. Sometimes she slips a lien under the door, sells your house, and buys a loft with a view. And sometimes that's exactly the happy ending you need.